The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which occurred in August 1945 during World War II, marked the first and, to date, only use of nuclear weapons in armed conflict. The long-term consequences of the bombings not only impacted the immediate environment of the two cities, but also influenced subsequent nuclear policy, arms control agreements, and public perception of nuclear technology. Today we will break down the environmental impact of the nuclear bombings and explain how these events change the way we look at weapon and nuclear usage. First, let's go over the immediate impact. The intense heat and pressure generated by the explosions resulted in a double-edged devastation due to the blast and thermal effects and the release of vast amounts of ionizing radiation. The detonation of the atomic bombs, codenamed Little Boy and Fat Man, created powerful shock waves and temperatures reaching millions of degrees Celsius. This led to the destruction of buildings, infrastructure, and landscapes in the target cities. The thermal effects ignited fires, compounding the devastation. The release of ionizing radiation occurred in the form of initial and residual radiation. Immediate radiation affected individuals within the blast radius, causing acute symptoms and fatalities. Residual radiation, comprised of radioactive isotopes produced by the nuclear fission reactions, contributed to long-term environmental contamination. Next, let's go over radiation fallout and environmental contamination. The environmental effects of the bombings were significantly influenced by the radioactive fallout. The explosions released a variety of radioactive isotopes, including cesium-137, strontium-90, and iodine-131. These isotopes contaminated the air, soil, water, and vegetation in and around the blast zones. Fallout particles settled on the ground, leading to soil contamination. Rainfall washed these particles into rivers and water bodies, causing water contamination. The persistence of radioactive isotopes in the environment contributed to long-term ecological consequences. The fallout had profound effects on plant and animal life as well. The absorption of radioactive particles by plants resulted in contamination of the food chain. Genetic mutations and health issues were observed in both animals and plants, indicating the far-reaching consequences of nuclear fallout on biodiversity. The human health and genetic implications resulted in the environmental effects of the bombings being intricately linked to human health and genetic consequences. The exposure to ionizing radiation led to elevated cancer rates among survivors. Long-term health issues, including radiation sickness and other radiation-related illnesses, persisted for years after the bombings. The radiation exposure had hereditary implications, resulting in genetic mutations in the offspring of survivors. This highlighted the interconnectedness of environmental and human health consequences. The most common defects seen at birth were anencephaly, cleft palate, cleft lip with or without cleft palate, clubfoot, polydactyly, which is an additional finger or toe, and syndactyly, fusion of two or more fingers or toes. Now we'll explain the post-war responses and policy implications. The environmental effects of the bombings played a crucial role in shaping post-war responses and policies at both national and international levels. The bombings contributed to the nuclear arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union. Subsequent nuclear testing, including atmospheric testing, released additional radioactive contaminants into the environment, exacerbating environmental concerns. The environmental and humanitarian consequences of the bombings spurred global efforts to prevent the proliferation of nuclear weapons. The Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, or NPT, emerged as a pivotal international agreement aimed at curbing the spread of nuclear weapons. Also, the environmental effects of the bombings played a role in catalyzing environmental activism. Concerns about nuclear weapons' impact on the environment contributed to a broader awareness of the interconnectedness of environmental and peace movements. Lastly, we'll be going over the long-term environmental legacy. The environmental legacy of the atomic bombings persists to this day, with ongoing efforts to monitor and mitigate the impact on both the physical environment and human health. Various remediation efforts have been undertaken to address the ongoing environmental contamination in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Soil remediation and monitoring programs aim to mitigate the impact on current and future generations. The environmental effects of the bombings serve as a stark reminder of the potential consequences of nuclear conflict. Educational initiatives and memorials in Hiroshima and Nagasaki aim to raise awareness about the environmental and human toll of nuclear weapons. In conclusion, the environmental effects of the atomic bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki were multifaceted, ranging from immediate physical devastation to long-term radiation contamination. The interconnectedness of environmental, human health, and geopolitical consequences underscored the need for international cooperation to prevent the use and proliferation of nuclear weapons. The legacies of these bombings persist in ongoing efforts to address environmental contamination, promote disarmament, and raise awareness about the enduring impact of nuclear warfare on the planet and its inhabitants. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. We appreciate the support and hope to see you in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and have a wonderful day.